bienvenue sur cette nouvelle émission du studio qui sera malheureusement la dernière de l'année. Celle-ci n'est pas néanmoins non spéciale, elle est en effet très spéciale car nous ferons une interview de monsieur Craig Hayes ici présent. Merci à lui d'avoir accepté notre invitation et nous sommes accompagnés aussi de nos deux intervieweuses, Precious et Lola, qui poseront les questions à Craig Hayes. Donc je vais commencer par présenter Monsieur Craig Hayes. Donc c'est un monteur pour le cinéma à Hollywood. Il a été assistant monteur notamment ou encore chef monteur pour des films comme Les Figures de l'ombre, Kalushi ou encore La haine qu'on donne, The Hate You Give. Il a aussi également travaillé avec de grands réalisateurs tels que Steven Spielberg sur La Guerre des Mondes, Quentin Tarantino sur Django Unchained ou encore Prêt à tout de Gus Van Sant. Aujourd'hui, Craig va tout d'abord nous parler de son métier de monteur à travers une série de questions qui porteront sur la collaboration entre les différentes équipes d'un film, l'évolution technologique, la créativité et le montage comme moyen d'expression. La seconde partie de l'émission sera consacrée à la diffusion de deux extraits du film La haine qu'on donne, The Hate You Give, de George Tillman Jr., au cours de laquelle Craig Hayes commentera ses choix de montage. Tout au long de l'émission, nous attendons vos questions en anglais via le chat. Uniquement, attention, en anglais. Les questions en français ne seront pas retenues. On les attend très nombreuses. Je laisse maintenant la parole à Lola et Precious.
Good evening, Mr. Hayes. Thank you so much for being here with us today. To start our discussion, I'd like to explore the collaborative aspects of film editing. Do you always understand and agree with a director's vision, or have there been times when you disagreed?
There's always a bit of friction between the director's vision and the material that comes into my room after a day's shooting. So my first duty is to try to capture the director's vision and his interpretation, but that's always the A story. The B story is the story that happens after the fact, after you're on set with hundreds of people. You have an actor that brings their own dynamic and the challenges of physical production. And once all those details come into play, we're left with something that often is quite different than what the written script was, and also what the director had in mind. And my job is to try to realize the director's vision the best I can. And ideally, it's a collaboration and a discussion how to best get what he or she had in mind to begin with. And it's a lot of work.
All right, so good evening. As you just said, there's a lot of collaboration, a lot of challenges while working with other people.
Yes.
As an editor, how much freedom do you usually have while working on a project?
Well, ideally, the most free, creatively free experience for me is to get my first version of the edit together, and I need to do that in isolation without the director sitting behind me. I sit with the material and create an assemblage of images and music and sound effects that best tells the story as I imagined it when I read it. And that process for me starts when I read the script. I start listening to music. I start imagining sound effects, and I'll play music behind me, and while I read, I'll take notes on what songs or what soundtracks I think would really work well. And for me, the director keeps shooting and I keep editing. I know sometimes in Europe and in South Africa, they were used to shooting everything and then they'd bring the editor in and they'd work together. In the United States, I start working before they start shooting, and from the first day of shooting all the way to the end, I'm editing. And generally, within 2 weeks after the last shot is shot, I have to show my version of the film. So for me, I need complete freedom to try out all these ideas. And then afterwards, the director will say, well, this is what I had, and I'll change everything. But because the beauty is, I have my version always, and we could always go back to it, and it's usually comprehensive. So for me, my best argument is doing the best job with the material before the director comes in.
Right.
Ce que l'on peut retenir, c'est qu'il y a toujours des points de friction dans la création d'un montage, notamment entre du coup le réalisateur et les monteurs en chef ou assistants, mais que le but est avant tout donc du coup de capturer et de réellement représenter cette vision du réalisateur à travers le montage, même si bien évidemment il y a toujours une grande différence entre le script et le final, enfin la version finale. En effet, la première version, celle qui est donc du coup sans réellement l'aval ou l'accord du réalisateur, donc du coup c'est par laquelle on commence. Donc ça permet d'obtenir directement une vision, une version initiale donc du coup de la direction du film, et ça permet ainsi d'obtenir directement des retours pour adapter celui-ci. Et une étape très importante, une différence très importante, c'est qu'en Europe, on a beaucoup l'habitude de filmer toutes les scènes d'un coup, puis de réaliser le montage en entier. Là où en Amérique, la différence est plus subtile, et on va notamment faire le montage en même temps que les prises, afin de mieux construire le récit.
So, beyond your own creative decisions, editing also involves working with other members of post-production. To what extent do you collaborate with the composers or music supervisors?
As far as music, it's interesting. I have very, my training was that it's better to edit and construct the story without music, dry. They call it dry, and just let the story stand on its own 2 feet. The older I got, I found it was just easier to, if everybody could hear music, they believed it was really a movie, and people relaxed a lot more. And the person that was really adamant about that was Steven Spielberg's editor. He had this giant library, and he always worked with music, but we always had to have it organized. And sometimes you think of it as a crutch, but for me, it helps inform my rhythms of editing and storytelling. It's often the case that the first person to see the film might be the composer. I might send a cut to the composer first, so he can get a jump start and start having ideas. Because the problem is, when I start putting music with the story, it starts melding with, when the director sees it, he thinks of the movie the way I did, and he can't get my music out of his head. And the composer is very frustrated because it encroaches on his creative process, because that's not how I would have done it. I see it a different way. So that's why I try to get the movie to him right away. So if he has different ideas, I can incorporate them sooner, so the director isn't married to something else. Because a lot of times the director, just do what Craig did, you know what I mean, or whatever the editor did, which isn't fair, but that's just the process.
Okay, thank you.
So your work is heavily linked with the composer's work?
Well, I'll pick a composer that I like. For The Hate You Give, I really like. There was an Icelandic composer who died actually during the editing of it, but we we hired his friend Dustin O'Halloran, who shared a studio with him, but he had the same creative aesthetic. So we were both influenced. He was influenced by my music, and I tried to make space for his music.
Does it work the same within the editing team? Like, does it happen that another editor inspire you to your work?
Oh, another editor?
Yeah.
I mean, on this movie, on The Hate You Give, I worked with another editor, and he had different styles. I had a faster rhythm than he did, but we tried to make it all match and try to feel like the same film. But we weren't too slavish to that. We had our own individual voices, but other editors like, when I look at a movie, I'm like you guys. I just kind of don't want to see any artifice. I just want to get caught up in the story. So I don't think there's like when I look at movies, I really like Thelma Shoemaker or Claire Bloom or whomever, Michael Kahn. I don't think, I want to edit this like Michael Kahn. I like his work, but I wouldn't want to mimic him. I just tried. I think for the creative process with me, sometimes the screen is like a blank canvas, and I feel like we paint with emotions, music, and sound, and create an environment. So I feel fairly raw. I don't try to impose a different construct on it necessarily.
Donc, ce qu'on a pu retenir, c'est que il y a vraiment un lien entre le montage et l'équipe derrière la musique, parce que en général, l'équipe du montage va commencer par une version sans musique, donc une version dry, c'est ce qui s'appelle, qui permet d'obtenir réellement une version uniquement basée sur l'histoire du film, et qui permet directement d'obtenir des impressions sur la compréhension de celle-ci. Mais ce qu'on peut retenir aussi, c'est que le responsable de la musique, c'est en général celui qui voit la version du montage en premier lieu. C'est celui qui du coup va permettre d'obtenir directement une ambiance globale sur le film. Et aussi que dans les teams de monteurs, chacun a sa propre vision, chacun permet de donner son propre avis sur la question et sur le déroulement du film, et c'est avant tout comme ça qu'on construit un récit. Je vais prendre quelques questions du chat. N'hésitez pas à les envoyer dès maintenant. How long does it take you to edit a film in general?
When I first started, it would take, some of the films took a long time, like 10 months to a year. I met this old guy who said he worked on Planet of the Apes and it took 3 years to edit that. But in recent years, the average time budgeted is about 6 months.
Yeah. I think we are going to go to the next part.
Okay.
So we've discussed the tools and skills involved in editing, but I'd like to focus on the qualities behind the craft. In your opinion, what does it take to be a good film editor?
In my opinion, it's really hard work. It's almost a compulsion. It's like you have to get it out of you. The expression, you have to feel it completely, and you have to be thorough. You can't. Obviously, there's not enough time to explore every variable and variation, but you can't be sloppy. There's an example whereas because the pressure of editing and time schedule, it's almost impossible to look at every shot the director shot, but you really need to make your choices and to make sure you have the best juice out of every performance that you possibly can. But if you look at every performance, literally it would take like a year to edit. So you really have to have an instinct and get an idea of where the story is going and try to follow that instinct from the beginning to the end. You can't do it artificially. One has to feel it emotionally. That's my opinion. But it really is a lot of hard work, long hours. I mean, really, like 12 hours a day is kind of average, 14 normal. I mean, on my last film, the first cut, I was working till 4:30 in the morning. But you guys probably work like that too, here, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
We'll show the viewers multiple pictures of you working in different setups throughout the years
Yes.
because it evolved a lot.
Yes.
It shows us something important. It's that the film industry evolves really fast.
Yeah.
And I guess you had to adapt with
Yes.
your experience.
Yeah.
Could you tell me more about that? Like, how important is it for you to stay at the cutting edge of technology?
Well, that's interesting. I mean, I had a unique experience, but it really I don't think everyone had the same experience as I did. It's just random, really. But I know a lot of people that started when I did. Yeah, here's a picture of me. I was working at commercials, and I had already been working for a few years. Oh, yeah, that's the machine I used with Steven Spielberg. He still used film. He wasn't. They liked. I mean, I think he shot when they first edited Private Ryan. It was like on something like that, and that's how I got hired by Steven Spielberg. Is because I knew the old-fashioned way to work with film, and he really didn't want to give that up. But my first job was lifting a moviola, that first shot that you had up when I was on the phone. It's like the size of a file cabinet, and I had to lift it up a flight of stairs. And one of my friends from college got me that job moving when I first got out to Hollywood, and I think they admired that I was willing to go for it, and they hired me, and that's how I got into editing, by lifting equipment. And it started with film, moviola upright, then there was flatbeds like this, flat moving, and then I started video editing, videotapes and cassettes, and then there was nonlinear like that. That's I think that looks like the Edit Droid. That's what George Lucas was behind that technology, and nonlinear editing was a huge jump, and that's what actually forced the end of film editing. It was nonlinear electronic editing, but it took about 10 years. But everybody that started with me was out of a job once that came in, unless you knew that, because usually it was young kids right out of college that didn't know anything about film, but they understood computer programming, and they got hired, and maybe they would hire someone like me to kind of tell them the basics, but they would take over. So a lot of people that I came up with didn't last. But because I had been able to do other technical, that's me in South Africa, I was able to adapt, and even for me, it was very difficult. Even though I was fairly adept with the technology, and I was very interested in it, I still had a hard time keeping up. So there you go. There's a lot. I could tell you millions of technical stories about. For the Hate You Give, for example, we had an actor that we had to recast because we found a racist clip on YouTube that he had forgotten about, and he played the white boyfriend. So they decided, should we cancel the movie or should we reshoot it? And they said, we'll reshoot it. And so we had to hire another white boyfriend, and we had to edit and composite the new actor over the old actor's face, different scenes. We had to reshoot the whole end again. And you guys, I don't think you could really tell that was a different actor.
No, absolutely not.
It was, I mean, I had to be in a trailer next to the set, 4 o'clock in the morning, freezing, editing, and they're saying, Craig, is it done? Will it work? Will it work? And I'm like, yeah, I think so. And they're like, well, could the actors want to go home? And we were like, okay, it's worked. And then, yeah, that was crazy. I think it was about a week or 2 weeks more work we had to do on location. And editors usually aren't right on location, but sometimes if they're confused about what they're going to do, they ask us to come in to give our opinion and give them solutions technically on how to incorporate new material.
Donc, ce qu'on peut retenir, it's fine. Ce qu'on peut retenir, c'est qu'un bon monteur, c'est avant tout quelqu'un qui est très très acharné dans son travail, passant plusieurs dizaines d'heures, donc peut-être 16 heures par jour par exemple, à travailler sur un seul même montage, à travailler en boucle. C'est comme ça qu'on devient un bon monteur, et un monteur qui surtout évolue dans sa technique et son travail. Le but, c'est aussi d'explorer le plus de possibilités, donc du coup d'explorer toutes les petits réglages, tous les changements donc du coup de caméra ou de coupure qui permettent d'obtenir des résultats différents et ainsi se créer un œil réellement différent sur son propre montage et sur son travail, et surtout aussi de suivre son instinct pour ne pas partir sur trop de voies qui pourraient finalement ne pas s'avérer concluantes. Aussi, une chose très importante à retenir, c'est que les avancements technologiques sont certes très importants, mais ce n'est pas ça qui suffit à devenir un bon monteur. Il faut surtout de l'intention, un bon storytelling et avant tout une envie de réaliser des films et de réaliser un bon montage. Peut-être que la technologie va permettre d'avoir un travail sur le court terme parce qu'on est meilleur sur un domaine, mais sur le long terme, ça ne sera pas viable pour réaliser et devenir un vrai bon monteur.
So technology is clearly an important part of modern editing, but it's only one side of the profession. How much of your work is technical versus creative?
That's an interesting story or question. I think it's it's hard to think of it in terms of percentage. I mean, the technology really is just a tool. But one has to ground oneself in the process, and because without process, it's easy to become paralyzed and know where to start. I know. I mean, there's one editor who works with Clint Eastwood, and they'll look. And also, Spielberg has worked this way as well. Whereas you'll look at all the footage and you'll sit there with a legal pad and you just take notes and watch you decide intellectually, you'll cut here and you'll go to this performance and you cut the scene without ever sitting in front of a editing machine. You cut it on paper. And Spielberg used to work that way. Well, he had colored pencils. And he would say, well, use this as the second shot. And it would be a green or a red or something. And he was very, very prescriptive. It was, you had to start with that construction, which, that's how he's used to working. I think I was never one of those editors that could just intellectualize things in the abstract. I really needed to feel and look at things and have an emotional response. So to me, working with the material and being creative are very much linked.
To conclude about the technical parts of your job and with your experience, what advice would you give to students who want to work in the multimedia field?
I think as far as multimedia I think my experience starting out was the most important thing is figuring out how to tell your own stories, and come up with your own ideas, and I think try to work things out on a smaller scale. I know there's creatively, it's creatively, but it's technical as well, as that it is an expression of lock yourself up in an ivory tower and close the doors and just work in isolation to really cultivate your ideas. Don't be influenced and distracted, and second guess yourself. That's one approach as well. But I think for creatively, I think you can't wait. You have to come up with an idea, and it sounds like you guys do that. So that's really important, that kind of rigor. Everybody starts with baby steps, but if you keep up with it, I think I don't know, trying. I mean, for me personally, I always, when I started, I would work nights and weekends on my own. I would stay late. The senior editor would have, I said, can I work with some scenes? And, or I have a friend that shot something. I would go to her place and edit. I'd edit at night. I'd edit on the weekends. I kept anything I could do to kind of develop my craft, and I would listen, I'd take advice, and I would for me, it's just hard work. It's just work all the time. So.
Donc en effet, dans le débat entre créativité et technique, la créativité prend bien évidemment une part beaucoup plus importante que la technique. En effet, certains monteurs passent même plusieurs dizaines de jours à seulement analyser les rushs sans même un logiciel, juste à imaginer et à théoriser dans leur tête comment arranger le montage et les différents clips avec les effets qui vont ensemble, et uniquement théoriser tout ça avant de le réaliser dans un montage. Mais un conseil, ce qu'on pourrait donner en tout cas, c'est que quand on veut devenir un bon monteur, c'est surtout de bien travailler cette partie créative, comme on a dit, mais surtout de donner sa vision, de transmettre celle-ci à travers le montage, car c'est une expression de celle-ci. Donc du coup, le but de donner ses idées, notamment pour commencer sur petit format, puis ensuite augmenter la production et les formats, afin de réellement se développer et augmenter ses propres compétences dans du coup des compétences de montage, afin de réaliser pour la consécration des longs formats. Je vais prendre encore quelques questions du chat. Do you think editing is just as important as the camera work done before filming?
I think most editors would say yes.
Yeah. Is there another question that could be good? I don't see any. So we are going to go to the next part.
Okay.
So every editor develops their own artistic vision over time, which leads me to my next question. What has driven your creativity throughout your career?
My creativity, I think I'm quite fortunate to work in a field that it's like a dream. I'm obsessively love cinema and films. I was a latchkey kid, and both my parents worked, so I was left. If I was sick, I would have to stay home, and the only entertainment I had were movies on television. And I have an abiding love of film. So to answer your question, the creativity, I think what inspires me are a wide, broad variety of film. watching films inspires me. It really gets me excited. Great performances, great cinematography, great expressions and innovations in cinema, historic from silent all the way until last week. That's what sustains me creatively.
As you told us, you worked with many people, and we can guess that each movie is a special experience.
Yeah.
You just said that what inspires you most is watching films, because that's what you always loved.
Yeah.
Did it ever happen that you had that feeling while editing and watching an actor's performance, and it kind of inspired you in the editing process?
Oh, sure. Yeah. All the time that happens. I feel an emotional connection to the young actor in South Africa. His commitment, his emotion when he breaks down crying would have me crying. Sometimes you have to create that out of whole cloth where there was no emotional connection, but you try to create one by cobbling different angles together to try to get somewhere that the actor couldn't. But, The Father and the Hate You Give was great. He inspired me, his commitment. I thought everybody was inspired by, God, I'm forgetting her name, in Hidden Figures, the lead actress in Hidden Figures. We thought she was going to get nominated for an Academy Award. Her performance is really, it's beyond the page. It's, something's created in that moment that comes into my room. And a problem is sometimes there's an emotion on set and everyone's watching and everyone has a feeling. But when it comes to my room, it didn't transfer into the celluloid. And often people are frustrated, like, but everyone loved it. And it's like, well, I wasn't there. I know what's here and I'm not feeling it. So there's something unique about the emotion and how it gets transferred onto celluloid or digital and how it gets received by everybody. It's, I love that.
Donc, ce qu'on peut enfin retenir, c'est que la passion, donc de créer des films, vient avant tout de, du coup, sa propre motivation. Et elle s'auto-nourrit, la passion nourrit la motivation et la motivation nourrit la passion à créer et avant tout de se lancer dans la création de films. Et l'inspiration vient en grande partie de regarder d'autres films, d'avoir donc du coup des inspirations visuelles, techniques, d'autres personnes pour enfin nourrir sa propre technique et ses propres inspirations. Mais l'inspiration ne vient pas uniquement d'autres films, elle peut venir aussi de la performance des acteurs. Donc peut-être une action forte va avoir donc du coup un impact fort sur le montage, va surtout être mis en avant et va avoir du coup des impacts pertinents et très forts du coup sur la vision qui est donnée à travers le montage.
So, while performances are a major source of creativity and inspiration, many other elements contribute to the final emotional impact of a film. How can color grading help support ideas or creativity?
And that's really interesting. It's like I described about music. My first impression of the color of a film is like the director's first impression of the music. Once you see it with you hear the music that goes with the images, you're influenced. And the same thing with the color in when I get the rushes. An interesting story is that Steven Spielberg's cinematographer, Janos Kaminski? I can't remember his name, but he would ask, he was very involved in the grading of the first rushes. So not the final color correction. He had the same feeling. He said, well, if Steven gets used to this color that's not what I intended or I think is bad, then I can't win, because when we get to the final, he's going to think that's how it's supposed to be. So we'd constantly get new versions of the day's rushes, and we'd get it, like sometimes we'd get 3 versions of the same, and it was brutal because this was not electronic. This was film, celluloid. So every time we had to cut and split, we had stacks of film that we'd have to replace because Janusz said, I don't like it. And we'd have to, and there's so much work. We'd have to put edge coating and there's so much work involved in rushes in the old days that we don't have to worry about now. But it was really, so it's really important. And sometimes the DP will completely change his mind, and a lot, what's very popular is to desaturate the color and add a layer of cyan on top of it to give the film some gravitas, to make things dark. So you're not used to seeing that. But a lot of cinematographers again, I'm retired, but they'd grade something in a new creative direction that was sometimes hard to accept, but sometimes, quite often, it was really a good choice creatively, and I'd have to defer to their expertise. I admit being resistant because I'm used to seeing people with full color. So, anyhow, there you go.
To continue about color grading, there's something we notice in the age you give. It's the change of colors in different point of views, like when the main character is at home and when she's at school.
Yeah.
How can you technically bring your touch to establish chemistry between characters and to make us feel that way?
Well, the creative decision and the hate you give, I don't think they wanted. We certainly didn't try to grade things differently internally within a scene like this. We didn't try to give a character different grading as opposed to the person in the conversation. That's achieved in lighting. We just try to make things consistent and make a choice. But there was a choice to the school. I can't remember the name of the school in Garden Heights where she grew up. There was a great cinematographer. Forgot his name. He just did Megalopolis with Francis Ford Coppola. He's I don't know, East European guy. Great job. He desaturated all the school stuff and made it very austere and anemic. And he pumped a lot of color and grain into the Garden Heights area, and that was a contrast, which was really cool. And you can do that a lot with dream sequence. We did that a little bit for when she flashed back to Khalil, the shooting. We did that. We graded but generally, unless it's, one editor I worked with liked to do a lot of vignetting, and he'd do it in the editing room. He would just put a layer on top of a shot and have it fall off on the edges to give more of a kind of I'm not sure what he was going at, of a feeling of intimacy. And I copied that sometimes. If I wanted to get an interior life of a shot, I would put a vignette around the edge of the frame. So you can do, generally, you just, one last thing, I know it's a lot, but it's one thing we'll do in editing, I'll do a push in, and I'll do a really slow push in. And when I started, you would never do that because that's not the intention of the cinematographer. But more and more, by the time I retired, everyone's like, why aren't you doing that? I wanted to have life. So what you're allowed to do and what you it really transforms over the years. I like manipulation, but I do respect the cinematographer and their intention.
Ce qu'on peut retenir, c'est que la couleur, donc l'étalonnage et toutes les étapes adjacentes à celle-ci, est réellement une étape très importante dans la création d'un film, car c'est celles qui peuvent donner une intention initiale. Donc par exemple, si on va directement modifier les rushs initiaux qui sont ensuite transmis, directement du coup de donner des émotions et de les transmettre à travers cet étalonnage. Donc du coup, ça peut être des directions qui peuvent changer en fonction du coup de la direction du film. Et un simple étalonnage peut changer totalement les émotions qui sont transmises par une scène, qui peuvent du coup donner des émotions complètement opposées seulement par la couleur. Mais une consistance à travers le film, par exemple entre plusieurs scènes, plusieurs lieux, peut aussi créer des relations entre les personnages. Potentiellement, un étalonnage plus chaud, par exemple, va donner une sensation plus avenante au lieu, tandis qu'un étalonnage plus froid va donner une sensation un petit peu bizarre et pas réellement accueillante à celui-ci. Mais du coup, cet étalonnage va pouvoir créer des vraies relations et des vraies interactions entre les personnages sans même transmettre directement par donc, du coup, des dialogues ou encore tout simplement juste par le montage. Nous allons finir par une petite question du chat. What movie do you think has the most unique or creative editing, in your opinion?
I don't know. I mean, I think the first thing that comes to mind is M from Fritz Lang, early German sound film. It would use close-ups and cutaways to inanimate objects to create narrative. And maybe that's not the most unique. It's unique in the sense that it hadn't been done before to a lot of degree. I think those early films in the early 30s, late 20s, that to me it's super innovative, that they explored new freedom in storytelling, you know, like the Odessa Steps in Potemkin, you know, I mean, it's those crazy fast cutting. Otherwise, I mean, when I came up, everyone would always, if you interviewed, it could be a movie about like the slow dialogue scene, but when it came to editing, they'd ask you if you had seen JFK, can you edit it like JFK? It was like ridiculous, like fast cutting, you know, showy cutting isn't really, if it doesn't support the story, it's not very good.
Yeah. I'm gonna finish with one last question.
Yeah.
Did you have once had the impression to save by your editing the work of the editor that you considered bad?
Oh, you know, a friend of mine does. He's like a film doctor. He comes in after the fact, but he does that. He made a whole career from it, but not me. I don't think I've ever come and try to fix someone else's work. That hasn't happened.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Eh bien, c'est déjà la fin de cette première partie. Je vous laisse donc avec Lucas qui va vous expliquer la suite de l'émission. Bien, merci à vous d'avoir regardé la première partie de cette émission.
Bonsoir à tous, merci Mathias, merci Lola. Good evening Craig.
Good evening.
Good evening Precious.
Good evening.
Je suis Lucas et je vais présenter la deuxième partie de cette émission. Nous sommes ravis de vous avoir avec nous et nous sommes ravis d'avoir autant de personnes dans le chat qui sont là pour réagir avec nous, et vous pourrez aussi poser vos questions tout au long de cette deuxième partie également. Donc voilà, n'hésitez pas toujours, il y aura à la fin un petit moment où je lirai les questions du chat comme Mathias l'a fait. Donc cette deuxième partie d'émission va être un peu plus technique. On va voir deux extraits du film The Hate You Give, La haine qu'on donne en français, qui a été réalisé en 2018, sorti en 2018, et réalisé par George Tillman Jr., sur lequel Craig Hayes, vous avez été chef monteur avec Alex Blatt, et donc vous allez pouvoir nous parler de vos choix que vous avez fait durant le montage de ce film. Mais tout d'abord, je crois que Precious a une petite question à poser à Craig.
So could you give us a quick summary of the film for those who haven't seen it?
I'll do my best. It's been some years, but essentially it's a story about our heroine, Star, who's a 16-year-old girl that lives in a non-specific town in the Midwest of the United States. She lives in a neighborhood that's generally poor and challenged, but she has had the good fortune to be admitted to an upper crust local school, which is predominantly white, her neighborhood being black. And what the basic story is, we discover how she manages code switching, where she navigates her neighborhood and her attempt to seem authentic, and with all the challenges of her lived experience there, but adapting to her white school, where she adopts a different language and expression, and attempts not to engender any conflict. What happens in our story is that she witnesses a brutal act of violence with one of her friends, and the story it explores how she has to navigate those two worlds with and still find her true self in face of this violent episode.
So, what were the main challenges in editing The Hate You Give?
Initially we were trying to figure out how we divide the labor and with my co-editor, and initially I was going to edit the scenes involving the home life and her challenges with her family and her community, and my colleague was going to edit the scenes with her trying to fit in at school. But we realized one of the biggest challenges for any editor is to stay behind camera, because you want to look at the rushes and edit as soon as possible to let everyone know if there's a problem, if we don't have enough to actually tell the story, or if there's a problem with performance. Initially, we were wondering if the heroine hadn't done a lot of major films. We're wondering, she had done the Hunger Games, right? We were wondering if her choices were a little anemic, if she was a little lackluster. And so we wanted to let the director, I don't know if he wanted to correct her, but we wanted to describe our experience. So we wanted to do it. We didn't want to overreact, but we wanted to kind of let him know. And we just created a dialogue and everything. I mean, she was amazing. I mean, everybody's surprised that she didn't get nominated. She did such a great job. But really, creatively, that was the only problem, except for what I described in our first half about having to recast one of the main characters.
Merci Craig, merci Precious pour vos questions et réponses. Donc pour ceux qui n'auraient pas vu le film de Hate You Give, donc c'est l'histoire d'une adolescente noire qui vit dans un quartier un peu pauvre, avec beaucoup de personnes de couleur de peau noire. Par contre, elle est scolarisée dans un lycée riche, avec des personnes blanches. Et donc en fait tout l'enjeu du film pour elle, c'est de naviguer entre ces deux mondes avec son langage qui doit s'adapter. Et à un moment dans le film, en fait, il y a un plot twist où elle est avec son ami d'enfance dans une voiture et elle ne comprend pas pourquoi ils se font arrêter par des policiers blancs et son ami malheureusement se fait tuer injustement. Et donc tout le film va être basé sur ça, sur le fait qu'elle veut prendre la parole et qu'elle doit bien s'assumer sur ces choses-là. Et donc aussi sur les main challenges, les défis pour un monteur. Tout d'abord, Craig Hayes nous a énoncé que c'était un peu dur d'abord de se coordonner avec son collaborateur pour savoir qui fait quoi, sur quelle partie, et aussi surtout de rester derrière les caméras, de ne pas dire là il y a un problème, ça va coincer au niveau du montage. Il faut vraiment rester derrière les caméras et ne pas interrompre le rôle du réalisateur. On va d'abord donc passer à ce premier extrait qui est le début du film, les toutes premières secondes de ce film. Et donc on va regarder ça tout de suite.
Now, when it happens, don't act mad. You gotta look calm. Answer their questions, but don't tell them nothing extra. Keep your hands out your pockets. You drop something, leave that shit where it's at.
Maverick.
Leave that stuff where it's at. My bad. Now, one day, y'all gonna be with me, and you best bet we gonna get pulled over. I don't mean I did something wrong. Maybe I made a mistake driving, or maybe I ain't do nothing at all. You gonna see me with my hands like this on the dashboard. Come on. Now you keep your hands posted, because moving makes the police get all nervous. If I ain't with you, you ask for me. It can get real dangerous, so don't argue with them. But keep your hands where they can see them. This how you gonna act. We straight?
I was 9 years old when I first got the talk. 7, my half-brother, was 10. Sakani was 1.
Now, just because we gotta deal with this mess, don't you ever forget that being black is an honor, because you come from greatness. Now, this is the Black Panther 10-point program. This our own Bill of Rights. I want you to learn it, because I'm gonna ask you about it, I'm gonna quiz you.
Really, Maverick?
Know your rights. Know your worth. You understand?
Donc voilà, c'était les premières minutes du film. Donc je vais laisser Precious poser 3 questions à Craig Hayes sur le montage de cet extrait de film.
So, in this opening scene, you chose a relatively slow editing pace. Why was it important not to cut too quickly?
We wanted to make a contrast. As he mentioned, it's the first minute of the film, so everything starts fairly quickly with the moving camera pushing in and navigating the neighborhood, and I think it's important to kind of dive right in, but we wanted to contrast that with the slow, deliberate editing cadence to emphasize the gravity of what was being said there. Once we land out of the kinetic introduction into the very static setting, we don't really know what's going to happen. We don't know if there is a portent of violence. Do we just miss something? There's anxiety. These are all elements that make us focus on what's being said. We have space to really absorb it, I think. When we meet our characters, we meet the father. We don't know if he's a malevolent character or a force for good. I mean, hopefully at the end of the scene, we realize his intention. And it's all, the reason why I cut that slow is to really make space. And I'm kind of a fast-paced editor, so it was really deliberate for me to take breaths and beat and set up really the premise, the instigating premise of the whole movie is that scene.
Okay. There are several reaction shots of the children. How did you decide when to leave Maverick and when to cut to them?
That's interesting. I'd have the children, but I also had the wife as well. And I think I forgot the Maverick's, the actor's name. He's a great guy. In his performance, he had all these grace notes, these breaths, these expressions, and my cutting rhythm was quite influenced by his performance. I kind of, I had the script in front of me, but I was watching Russell Hornsby's performance in his emphasis, and I let that guide my editing. And going to the kids, I just chose this. I didn't want it to be literal bang, 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 but I wanted it to go to the kids for maybe not the beginning of what he was saying is related to them, but the effect of what was important to resonate for them to get and for us to get as well. So one interesting thing is that some of our preview audiences, a lot of the audience afraid that he was too severe in this scene, and he was a scary black man. But luckily, the studio didn't make us cut him down and make him, more friendly.
I'm really glad about that. Was there a specific moment where you knew a close-up was more effective than a wider shot?
It's, kind of editing 101 where you start wide and you go in close and you choose. You don't really go out wide again unless there's a reason, or, it doesn't have to be motivated. It doesn't have to be logical. It has to be an emotional reason, maybe a palate cleanser or a remove. If you want to consider something in an abstract way, you might go out wide again. But generally, I don't like to go in super close and then go out again. I think I know that's kind of basic, and I don't adhere completely to that rule, but it's jarring for me to go in tight and then go into a medium shot, unless the emotion calls for it.
Thank you again, Craig and Precious, for these questions and answers. Donc, ce qu'on peut retenir, c'est que Craig Hayes a fait plusieurs choix de montage ici, surtout d'éditer un peu, pas rapidement, enfin lentement, d'éditer cette scène lentement, de faire des plans sur les enfants par exemple. Et donc, ce qui l'a guidé, c'est surtout l'acteur Maverick, le père. Ça l'a vraiment inspiré dans la manière dont il jouait, dont il parlait, et aussi c'était pour que les gens qui voient le film puissent s'immerger directement dans la situation, prendre le temps de découvrir les personnages et le contexte que l'on ne connaît pas encore. On va maintenant passer au deuxième extrait qu'on va regarder, qui est un peu plus tard dans le film.
Point 7 of the 10-point program, say it. Stop crying and say it.
We want an immediate end to police brutality.
Finish it.
And the murder of black people and people of color and oppressed people.
By what means?
By any means necessary.
By what means?
By any means necessary.
By what means?
By any means necessary.
So why you gonna be quiet? What does that say?
Reasons to live give reasons to die.
Yeah. You, your brothers, and your mother are my reasons to live and die. I gave each of you power in your names. 7 perfection, starlight, Sakani joy. Use it. So when you're ready to talk, you talk. Don't ever let nobody make you be quiet.
Voilà pour ce deuxième extrait. Je vais encore laisser la parole à Precious pour poser 3 questions à Craig.
So this scene feels more emotionally intense. Did that change your editing approach?
Yeah, just to give you a little setup for this scene, it follows a scene where the father has been physically assaulted by 2 police officers at a diner. And the father has a criminal record. And there's a real fear that he's going to get hurt, especially after we've seen her friend get killed by the police. This follows on the heels of a very intense emotional scene that my colleague edited. In details not necessary to go through here, they get out of it and Star helps get her father released. So the family's gone through an intense emotional moment. This scene is kind of an echo of the first scene. A lot of the same dynamics of how serious this is to the black family, but in this case, the stakes couldn't be more extreme. And so, in my cutting rhythm, I just followed the emotion of the performances, her performance and his performance. Really, what's interesting about this cutting pattern is that we tried a couple of different ways to cut, but every time we tried to fudge the cut so we made it more on the nose, it really sucked a lot of the power away. And the same with the music. The music was lilting. In my score that I did was similar to what he's done here, but originally he tried to do something more intense or more saccharine, and the music needed and the cutting pattern needed a specific rhythm, and it was quite important because this is an inflection point for her character, and this is probably a hint of the beginning of her deciding to take her own power. So.
It's funny that you mentioned the details with the first scene because my next question is, did you intentionally mirror any editing choices from the opening scene?
No, not at all. None of the editing choices. It's if anything, it's a contrast. It's instead of making the stillness to absorb what the first the words in the first scene, this is more of a gut punch. We're just trying to. This is what the other scene wasn't. This is a dramatic, an earned dramatic, emotional scene where the dynamic, the talk is very emotional for Black families because the threat of violence in Black families is so real. That's the great thing about this film. It really organically emphasizes it.
If you compare the two scenes, what is the biggest editorial differences between them?
I think the biggest, it's really the performance. It ends in a catharsis. The second scene ends in a catharsis. The first scene ends, it's just the opposite. It's a very wholesome expression of love. I think you, at the end of the first scene, one feels the heart of the family and the potential, and the love that's transmuted between the family. You really feel the love, whereas in the second scene, you feel the love as well, but it's really, it's super potent and dynamic. I know we had one take where we had the father break down and cry and heave, and I remember we had that same choice in Hidden Figures where should we let her cry or should we not let her cry? And then Hidden Figures, we let her cry. In this film, we tried the crying take and it was a little too much, but Russell was fantastic.
Thank you very much again for these questions and answers. Donc pour mettre un petit peu de contexte sur cette scène, là on voit le père, donc Maverick, se faire prendre en assaut dans sa maison par deux policiers, et ça instaure un climat de peur, car Maverick a déjà un casier judiciaire, mais du coup il y a eu d'autres choix qui ont été faits ici, comme on a vu, de montage. Et donc on pourrait penser, est-ce que ça serait pas un peu un miroir avec la première scène? Mais Craig Hayes nous a répondu que non, c'est plus une contraste. Ces deux scènes sont plutôt liées, mais c'est plus un opposé. Dans la première, on y voit plus de l'amour, et dans la deuxième, il y a de l'amour, mais c'est plus de la peur. On est moins posé. Donc, n'hésitez pas encore à poser vos questions dans le chat. On va faire une dernière salve de questions. So, I have two questions that I just took from the chat during this sections. First of all, considering your experience, did you consider the opportunity to become a director?
Like a lot of kids that enter film school, when I went to school, I really did want to be a director. I dreamt of being a director, but early on in my film career, I just started in low-budget films and commercials, publicity, and I saw how intense and crazy it was. Just watching someone direct gave me a headache, and I like the idea of creating a vision creatively, but managing a circus wasn't. I didn't respond to. I liked a little bit more control of the editing room, where I can make decisions and it's not a constant distraction. So the answer is no.
Thank you. And so to finish with the chat, with the last question, I have something which is not related with the movie, but which is pretty interesting. Outside of the US, where do you think they make the best movies?
Oh, I couldn't tell you. I'll just tell you. Growing up, I thought the best movies were made in France. But the new wave, like when I went to cinema, that's what we studied, is the French New Wave. And I really loved, when I got to Los Angeles, I loved the films of Jean-Luc Godard. I would love to make films like that. But since then, I think like 10, 20 years ago, I thought, oh my God, the Korean filmmakers are really interesting, and it's full-blooded, bodied, emotional creative filmmaking. So I think I would say the U.S., France, Korea, and when I worked in South Africa, I thought the work ethic and the depth of creativity of the craftspeople, particularly the actors, I thought they were working with South African actors. I thought they had to be literate and fluent in 7 languages, and they had great improvisational skills that helped make the script and the story so much better. All the actors were disciplined that way. I was extremely impressed by the actors in South Africa. So there you go.
Thank you very much for this. I'm sorry for those who has another question, but we are going to pass off with the last question of Precious.
So you're retired right now, right?
That's right.
But do you have any future editing projects?
Absolutely not.
Oh.
I don't even edit home movies. I don't want to.
Absolutely
no, I don't. I've worked a lot and I'm all tuckered out.
Thank you very much again, Craig Hayes. It was really a pleasure to receiving us here, answering to our questions. Merci aussi à Precious, à Mathias, à Lola et à toute l'équipe derrière, car oui, c'est un grand projet, c'est un grand travail sur lequel nous avons travaillé depuis plus d'un mois. Donc voilà, je voudrais les remercier. Faites du bruit dans le chat pour la régie, pour tous les organisateurs. C'était la dernière émission de l'année, malheureusement, et oui. Mais on se retrouve en septembre pour l'émission de rentrée. Donc soyez présents, abonnez-vous d'ici là. Et goodbye.
Goodbye.